And we are back. Thank you for joining us for another episode of USATF's Journey to Goal Zone podcast. I'm your host, Erik Kynard, and we have with us co-hosting this evening Dr. Sharrieffa Barksdale, Manager of Alumni Services. And during this episode, we have another segment of our Black History Month series where we have a very special alumni guest.
Yes, we do, Eric, and we have no other than the legendary Dr. John Carlos in the house with us today. How are you doing?
Whoop, whoop. I'm doing great, Sharrieffa. Great to be alive. Great to have this opportunity with you.
Okay, well, we're going to jump right in it. But you know what? Before we start, John, someone told me that, when you all were on trips and stuff, that you would never train, that they would never see you train. Only thing they saw you was when you went out on that track and you shook your leg out a couple of times, and that you got in those blocks and you just was fast as greased lightning. But what they didn't know, that while everyone was sleeping, you was out there getting busy, working out and working hard. So is that statement true or not? Just come on with it.
That's a fact. I used to call it my underground workout. I felt it was more serene in the morning, like 5 o'clock in the morning as the sun is starting to rise, to get out there and you get a chance to get into yourself, and nothing is around to bother you, and you can feel the body motion and the vibes and everything. Less traffic, less headache. So yes, I did that for quite some time before they realized. I think someone drove by and saw me working out at that time of morning. Then the cat was out of the bag.
Okay, so look, they caught you, but that's okay because you already knew what time it was.
Absolutely, and I made them know what time it was as well.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, Dr. Carlos, 80 years old, right? 80 years young.
Well, I'll be 80 this June.
This June, 80 years young this June, 1967, Pan American Games gold medalist, 1968 bronze medalist in the Olympic Games, 9/11 in the 100 yards, 10 flat in 100 meters, 1992 in the 200 meters, and 47 flat in the 440. A true sprinter.
Oh, let me correct you in one thing. You said 1992 at the Olympic trials. The actual time was 1970. They robbed me, actually. They took the time away. They talked about the shoes was running and so forth and so on. But I never let them discredit what I did on the track. I always say, you could say what you want, but they had people in the stands and they saw it and they had their watches as well. So I'm going to go with my standard time was 1970.
Yes, sir. 1970 Lake Tahoe Olympic Trials finals, I believe so. And they definitely, it's amazing that they were giving you a hard time about your shoes now with the technology of shoes advancing as far as it has.
Well, I don't think the shoes had anything to do with it. I think it was my political views that clouded their minds.
Now, I would say that I would agree with you or am in agreement with you. So 1968, San Jose State, from East Texas in 67. Born in the Bronx, Harlem raised, Harlem bred. What led you to East Texas State University, and what led to your such a short stint at East Texas State University?
Well, I wasn't interested in going to college. I was married my senior year in high school. I had a young kid, a young daughter. I anticipated, getting an apartment in the project. Grew up like most kids in the project, and I applied to get an apartment there. And just as I applied to get the apartment there, I got a call, and a fellow said to me, he said, "John, I think I can get you a scholarship at East Texas State." Well, I wasn't interested in going to college at that particular time. I was interested in being the breadwinner for my family and raising my child. And they made it clear to me that it might be a good situation for me to go to college and get my daughter a chance to grow up in the country, so to speak. Wouldn't have to have the hustle and bustle of the city. And I thought that might be a good idea. So I talked to my young, beautiful wife at the time, and we decided that, we'll take the trip to East Texas State and see what it was about. Excuse me. Unfortunately, I wasn't astute as to how racism had perpetrated so much in the state of Texas. I didn't look at the state of Texas at that time as being part of the South. But as soon as I gathered my family and we flew into East Texas State, or to Commerce, Texas, by way of the Dallas airport, when I land, it looked like I went through a time zone. I saw white restrooms only, white water fountain only. Then they had another room says coloreds and anything else. You bring your horse, your cow, your dog, whatever you want in there. Uh, I looked at the white restroom. I saw it pristine, clean, like you can fry eggs on the floor. And in the colored restroom, it had nets flying, water running, toilet paper running. And right then I realized that I made a big mistake. Not so much in the sense that John Carlos went there at that particular time, but more so that I brought my family there with me. This was all before I even met the coach on a physical thing, seeing one another. And when I did meet him, instantaneously my name changed from John Carlos to Boy. And then from Boy to this word they used to call Negro. And the Negro was so fast until it sounded like the other word. So I realized right away that I made a mistake by coming there with my family.
And when you were there and you decided that, that wasn't the place for you, what kind of feeling did that make you feel, and what was your option after going there and you had your hope set on going to college, moved your family there, now you see all this racism. What did you feel after that? What was your option? Because to me, if I went there, it seemed like I wouldn't had any option, but I know John Carlos, I know you had some options.
Well, there's two things that went through me in that particular time. The first thing was I was always independent. I was the youngest son. I would never go to my mother and father and ask them for any financial support in what I was doing. I was young. I was married. I had my own responsibilities, and I wasn't going to take my responsibilities and put it back on my parents. So I said, "Well, I'm here. I'm here now. I'm gonna work it out." And when I went on to East Texas State campus, I met a young white fella by the name of Terry Barnett, the late Terry Barnett, I might say. And we made a bond. And he came to me and he said, "John," he said, "listen, man, it's not going to be easy for you here. This school has just become integrated 1 year prior to you coming. The state is trying to go through these pains of integration. And you come out of New York, it's going to be rough." He said, "Well, man, I think if we stick together, we can make it come true." So I stayed on the way to Terry. And the coach and I had our ups and downs and our ins and outs and all around. And I was getting ready to leave. And I remember Terry said to me, he said, "John," everyone came to me. The coaches came, like the vigilante committee, tell me Delma made a mistake and this and that. A lot of complications leading up to that. But in any case, Terry and I had a conversation, and he said, "John, we made a bond." And I said, "You're absolutely correct." He said, "Man, we don't have a snowball's chance in hell to win this NIA championship without you." And I looked at him and I smiled. I said, "Terry, that's the best thing I heard all day. Let's go on and win this championship." And that's what actually made me stay there for that full year. I came back the next year. I tried and stick it out again, but the coach and I, we just couldn't sit down and work our differences out. He was just a little stuck in his way, and I just wasn't going to have it.
Yes, sir. Now, how much, Dr. Carlos, did obviously you are the child of, your mother was a Cuban American immigrant, father's from the deep South, South Carolina. You were raised in Harlem, New York. You come from a military family. How much does that foundation and the foundational principles of your family and your upbringing, how much did that play into developing, the character and you just kind of understanding the responsibility associated so early with who you were as a black man in the world?
Right. Well, I had strong parents, man. It gave us good values and morals, loyalty, honor, and respect. It taught us about all of these things. At the same time, they taught us to be independent thinkers, to think about what you do and be responsible for what you do. I remember my father used to tell me, say, "Son, if he thought that I did something wrong, not that I did something wrong, merely as I said, he thought I did something wrong. He would say, 'Son, you got 48 hours. And in that 48 hours, I better come up with an explanation as to why I did what I did.'" And I got popped on the butt a few times, popped in the chest a few times for not doing what he thought I should do. But one day, I had a situation and I had to go to court and was leaving the court. My father stopped me and he told me, he said to me, he said, son, he said, you know, I whipped your butt many times. He said, I've always whipped you because I thought you were out of line. He said, and you never whimpered one time. He said, but always I can say down the line, you've always been proven to be right for what you've done. And yeah, that made me feel good that I know that I didn't go out of the line, out of the circle. He used to tell us life was like a circle and you got all the good things you need in the circle. You can put your hand, your leg out the circle, but don't go out the circle because there's no guarantee you'll get back. So I stayed within my realm in the circle doing what I was doing. Now, I might have been to the edge on a lot of things because when kids didn't have clothes or food in the neighborhood and I looked for adults to do certain things and they didn't do it, somebody had to do it. So I took it upon myself to be that Robin Hood of the community.
That's great. John, I know that you have a book out, and it's called The John Carlos Story: The Moment That Changed the World. Tell us a little bit about the book. I know I have the book, and I know that you signed a poster, and I've been knowing you for a very long time, John, but a lot of people, let's give them a chance to know just a little bit more about you and what's in your book.
Well, you know, the book is written, like when I got together with a young fella by the name of David Zarin, and David is an excellent writer. And I told David, I said, look, man, we're going to go round and round on this because I want this book to be like, if someone reads this book, I want them to feel they're walking through my life's history with me. And that's the way we wrote the book, to make people feel like, man, I read this and I felt like I was right there. And I didn't do anything but talk about my life in terms of, you know, grade school, straight on up the pole. You know, I was real in terms of saying when I went to school, I was not an A student, B student, or C student. I was a D student. I didn't particularly like school. I felt like school was a way to keep me suppressed in terms of me actually getting a chance to see what the world was about. But it was necessary to go to school. So I went to school, and when I began to really get into it, then I began to challenge certain teachers and things that they were teaching us. And that created problems for me because now they would try to label me as a troublemaker because if they said something, I wanted it to be certified. Back up what you said because it just doesn't make sense to me. So I got that reputation. And then went on from there in school. You know, we had bad lunches and so forth. They feed us chicken every day. Every day we had chicken, chicken soup, chicken salad, chicken sandwich, chicken this, chicken that. But the most degrading thing was that we'd have chicken and they would have the feathers in the chicken. I used to say the hairs in the chicken. And I remember me and my boys got together and we had a discussion about that. And when I went to the principal, he told me, he said, well, the cook said so many chicken they have to clean and this and that. I said, well, look, my mother pulled them fellas every time she cook our fried chicken or roast chicken or what have you. What's wrong with you guys? So then their attitude was, get out of my office. I don't want to entertain anything you're saying. So I decided, okay, I realized they had to fix the food every day. So I decided that I would get the fellas together and we'll stage a strike. We won't eat the lunch. We know they had to fix it every day, but we waited. We started brown bagging. We had a few people out of line. They would have a couple of accidents when they made the turn. Then they fell in line. They started bagging their lunch. To set an impression that, hey man, we have a voice too. We go to school here. We live in this community, and we're not going to let you treat us any less than we see you treat primarily a white institution, a white school. They didn't get the chicken the way that we got. And we wanted to have a better situation. Sometimes you have to, you know, create a tough love situation. You know, I don't really care whether individuals like me as much as I'm concerned about what I do. They're going to respect me for who I am and what I do.
You were, you know, a founding member of the Olympic Project for Human Rights. Can you speak a little bit about, obviously, you know, activism was something that was born to you. You were born to stand up, you know, for what's right, even in your explanation of, you know, the school lunch. Can you talk a little bit, Dr. Carlos, about meeting Dr. Harry Edwards and the impact or influence he had in you becoming a founding member for the 1968 Olympic Project for Human Rights?
Well, man, you know, I'm going to tell you before we get to Edwards, Dr. Edwards, I would say that my life has been like a stairway to who I am, to who John Collins is. Because what Dr. Edwards was preaching, I grew up with that in my genes, in my blood, in my spirit. It's almost like I was born June 5th to be in Mexico, October 16th. So,
Mm-hmm.
what happened was when I left East Texas State, we used to go down to the Nationals. And the Nationals in California, and it was a fellow that was a great spread out of Southern University named George Anderson. We used to call him Log. Well, Log was a very good friend, and we said, man, let's go and matriculate down to San Jose and see what this guy's little Speed City is all about. So we would go down there and check him out and the whole nine, and saw Mr. Smith doing some turns, and they had the cameras out there. We asked Coach, could we get in? And Coach said, yeah, get on in there, and George Anderson and I burning Mr. Smith up. So he stopped us. It was a young fella sitting on the side by the name of Art Sinberg. Art Sinberg, you might look at him as a new modern day Abe Saperstein. If you don't know who Abe Saperstein is, he was the owner and the creator of the Harlem Globetrotters. And Art Sinberg felt like he had that same desire to put together this team. So he was looking for recruits. And when he saw us, he was so flabbergasted. He said, man, let me take you around the campus. And I went around and I got a chance to meet Professor Harry Edwards at the time. And I looked at him in terms of his stature and so forth like that. But then I got to listen to his theories in life, his paradigm and so forth. And I kind of felt like we had a parallel right there. The way he was thinking, I was thinking. But I went on back to the Nationals in San Diego and did what I had to do. And then when I got to the point in East Texas State where it was bad and I made the decision I have to leave, I was home helping my mother actually paint the kitchen, and the phone rang. I got the call from Dr. Edwards about the meeting they were having at the Americana Hotel, which was first from the old garden. And I was invited, and they told me when I get there to ask for SCLC. Well, I didn't know what SCLC was. Today, if you know, SCLC is the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. So when I went there and I knocked on the door, and the guy opened the door, I was blown away by the guy that opened the door because his face looked so familiar, but his body structure didn't meet the face. And I'm looking in my brain and saying, it's him. No, it's not him, but it is him, but it can't be him. Back and forth. And the individual was Dr. Andrew Young. And the reason I'm saying that is because I thought Dr. Andrew Young was my height, at least 6'3", 6'4". And I'm saying to myself, wow, the guy that took his picture must have been laying on his back and shooting up because he looked so tall when I saw him. And he was very kind, generous, had me come in, made me feel comfortable. Would you like a sandwich? You like tea? You like coffee? Whatever you like. And I'm there for a number of minutes, and he looked around, and I don't never get nervous or shaky about anything. But this particular day, I got a little nervous. Why? Because all of the luminaries that my parents used to see on TV and with my brothers, we would look up and see all these civil rights activists on television. What is John Collins doing in the room with them? That's the first thing that hit me. And then after I'm there like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, a side door opened, and here Dr. King walks out into the room, and I almost wet on myself. I was like blown away. My mother needed to be here. She needs to be a rock in my pocket or a bug on my lapel. She needs to be here right now. And, so we had the meeting, and the meeting at that particular time was in reference to the Olympic boycott or the Olympic potential boycott. And Dr. King was solidifying the fact that he wanted to be involved in the boycott. He wanted to be second in command. He thought that Dr. Edwards was doing a fantastic job. And I was just blown away the fact that he was willing to put everything aside to step up and lend support. So, when you sit back, you think about what happened in Mexico City, a lot of that was formed out of that meeting or that conference that I had with Dr. King in terms of doing something that would be so potent, but yet still so nonviolent. And we have the opportunity to reach out and touch the world at that
Right.
precise
And
moment.
that is so amazing. And that would bring me back to asking you, when you all did raise your fist and you had to endure the backlash that you all endured. And then 55 years later, you were inducted into the USOPC Hall of Fame. What was going through your mind when you received that call? Because I was there when you was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Reflect back on that and give me your perspective of what happened and how you felt.
Well, many of the guys that was involved in that activity, they were put in the Hall of Fame long before me. And I understood why they were put in the hall before me, because I was the most vocal. I'm not going to take the medicine or take a sock and stick in my mouth. I'm going to speak my mind and I'm going to speak truth. So my conclusion was that their Hall of Fame would not be legitimized if I wasn't in the Hall of Fame, because I had far surpassed all the credentials to be there. So they felt it was necessary to open their arms and invite me to be in the Hall of Fame. I could do no less than to accept it. It's almost like they use the theory that I say the greatest invention of all is not the airplane or the typewriter or the TV. It's something that we use in school every day, an eraser. They use the theory of that eraser. We made a mistake in the past. Let's correct this mistake and move forward. So, I can do no less than accept their opportunity for me to be a part of the Hall of Fame, because I look at the Hall of Fame and the Olympic movement is like the president of the United States. Once you're a president, you're always a president. Once you're an Olympian, you're always an Olympian. And not too many agencies throughout society has that same right.
No, that's a fact. Well, definitely a moment, obviously, that has withstood the time of history and arguably is one of the greatest displays of nonviolent protests in sports history. Going up on that podium, donning a black glove on your left hand, beads around your neck, a black T-shirt, and black socks, shoes off of your feet, Dr. Carlos, when you look back at that moment, if there was anything that you could say to your 23-year-old self then, what would it be?
Well, let's say based on what I did and all the drama and trauma from that activity, you think to yourself, you say, well, what crack did you have in your armor? And the only crack that I feel that I had in my armor at 23 years old was that I didn't do a better job protecting my wife and my kids. Being young, you think that you're out there fighting this dragon and the dragon is after you. You would never think that, he's going to go after your kids. He's going to go after your wife. And it took a while for me to figure out that they went after them because they couldn't get to me any other way other than going after them. Mm-hmm. And it was like a kick in the gut. But other than that factor, man, everything was right on. You couldn't add nor take away anything. I'm still as proud to be in that position today as I was 57 years ago.
And John, you know what? Just having you here on this podcast and listening to your story and enlightening us about Black history, because this is Black History Month. You the epitome of history. You the legendary John Carlos. And I never forget when we did finally meet, and this been many, many years ago. I mean, I was speechless. I'm like you. When you walked in the room with Dr. King and I see John Carlos, it's the same feeling, because you are a legend. And never forget who you are, what you are, or whom you are, because you stood on principle. You stood on the truth.
Hey, Sharrieffa, let me just say you how I've raised John Carlos. I never wanted to be no more the son of Earl and Byron Carlos, no more or no less. It's just like if I see somebody fall down in the street, I can walk by them or I can take my time and help them up. And that's my game in life, to help who I can help. Everyone don't want your help, but everybody is needed of help.
Yes, sir. Well, we appreciate your time, Dr. Carlos. We appreciate your contributions to the sport of track and field and the history of the world, and your continuous efforts to speak truth to power as it relates to what's right in activism and all that you do. We thank you for joining us for another episode of USATF Journey to Gold Zone podcast.
Let me say one thing before I go. You got a minute?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
Okay. It's one thing I want to drop for these young athletes out here. These young athletes today, they seem to think that they built the wagon. You understand? And there's so many athletes that was out there before them that set the stage for them to be the superstars they are today. We didn't have props and so forth to make us faster. We didn't have a lot of the things they had. But the most thing that hurts a lot of the veteran track and field athletes, men and women, is the disrespect. A lot of young athletes show total disrespect to many individual athletes. If you try and talk to them, it's almost like somebody said, "Don't talk to him. He got on his collar. Stay away from him." Like they think we want something from them. We don't want anything from them. We just want to tell them, say, "Hey, man, in the tunnel they got certain people with boards in the room, 2x4s that knock you upside your head. We just trying to prevent you from hurting yourself. But if you don't want us to associate with you, we have no problem with that. But don't show disrespect." And that's the most critical thing, because this old statement that used to go around when I was a kid and said, "What goes around comes around." You disrespect someone and your retirement age, you're going to find that same disrespect.
Yes, sir.
That's
yes,
right.
sir. Well, we definitely appreciate you, and we definitely look to continue to reciprocate the respect that you have earned as not only a human being, but a legend amongst us, meager regular folks
That's
in the
right.
sport of track and field, and all that you've done, to pave the way for people like Sharrieffa Barksdale and Erik Kynard to exist.
That's
We
right. And we
definitely
appreciate
that
it and
impact.
love you
Well,
dearly.
I appreciate you, and I have nothing but love for you guys as well. Take care, man, and tell all
Thank
my track family back there I send love as well. God bless.
Yes,
Stay
sir.
safe.
Okay.
Love and
Deuce.
respect. Stay safe. Peace.
Right. Bye bye.